Have you ever been confused by two different things that have the same name? Me neither. Ah! Anyway, we're here to talk about NASCAR Heat 2002. Two games with the same name that are not the same. So let's talk about the series to start. NASCAR Heat started out as a PC game made by Monster Games that released in August of 2000. A PlayStation port came along in November, and it was touted as the next great racing game. The PC version was actually pretty solid, touting good graphics and solid gameplay, but it was definitely more of an arcade racer than the Papyrus NASCAR racing series. On June 18th of 2001, its successor, NASCAR Heat 2002, released on the PlayStation 2.
Best drivers. Oh yeah, this is Heat, NASCAR Heat, pushing your PlayStation 2 into overdrive. Rusty Wallace says it's the best NASCAR game ever. The only game where NASCAR drivers dare you to compete. It challenges they actually faced. They designed it. Now you're racing it on PlayStation 2. Oh yeah, this is Heat, NASCAR Heat, rated E for everyone.
On the back of the box, Rusty Wallace touts this game as the best NASCAR game ever created, giving anyone who purchased it a good feeling going in. And after playing it as myself as a kid, and as an adult, I can assure you that is not the case. So let's go ahead and dive in. When you boot up the game, you're greeted with the NASCAR Heat theme song from the first game, and also the blue background from the first game as well. It almost feels like a PC port from the opening screen alone. Once you enter your profile name, you have 4 menu options to choose from: Beat the Heat, Race the Pro, Single Race, and Championship. Whichever one of these you choose, aside from the single race, Alan Bestrick will pop up on screen and he'll tell you what each mode is all about. He was also in the original NASCAR Heat doing the same thing, so it's nice that they found a familiar face to kind of be the spokesperson for their game. So let's go ahead and jump on track. When you go to a single race, you'll have 25 drivers to choose from, which doesn't seem like a lot. You're missing drivers like Michael Waltrip, Jerry Nadeau, Kyle Petty, Jason Leffler, Johnny Benson, Ricky Craven, and more. It's really random how many drivers aren't included, especially drivers on big teams and the Daytona 500 winner from that year. Once you get past the fact your favorite driver might not even be in the game, you'll notice another glaring issue: the cars. I mean, look at these things. They look like they were put together with about 45 pixels. I know I'm running this on an emulator, and it makes everything clear and shiny, but these car models are absolutely hideous. It's like they barely tried to upscale the PS1 models or something. It really does look like an upscaled PS1 game. The schemes themselves are blurry, pixelated, and them being this bad on the driver select screen does not bode well for the on-track product. You'll also notice that there are no manufacturers. I honestly don't know the reason for this. Not one monster NASCAR game released in the 2000s had car manufacturers. It's definitely off-putting, but with the bad-looking car models, I'm not sure it would have mattered much. Next, you'll head to the track selection screen, and once again you'll encounter a problem: missing tracks. There's no Pocono, there's no Indianapolis, no Kansas, and no Chicago. I'm sure there are logistical reasons for this, like Kansas and Chicago are new tracks, and maybe Indianapolis didn't want to give the rights away or something, but it's still a bummer and it takes away from the overall NASCAR experience. Then you'll go to a menu where you pick from practice, qualifying, race, and setup. You have to load the track in after selecting each one, and then reload it when you come back. Once you get to the track, the game will take you through the first few rows, and then you're off. While there are only 25 drivers in the game, the most cars you'll have on track at a time is 24. That's right, 24. You can only race 23 other cars at a time. NASCAR Thunder 2002 did not have this problem. It makes the races feel empty, and definitely more like an arcade game. The physics themselves handle like NASCAR Heat on PC, but a little worse. It's difficult to spin out other drivers. It's random on when it lets you do that alone. The other cars feel like tanks. Hell, even your car does. The handling model is very stiff, and sometimes it almost feels impossible to get loose. Road courses aren't very fun because of that, because you're using the buttons for gas and brake. There's no analog triggers, so you're full 100% brake or full 100% gas, and it's hard to be precise. There isn't any flexibility with the controls because of the lack of the analog triggers. I know what I'm saying makes this game sound bad, but it plays okay. It isn't horrible. It's just more of an arcade game than anything. The tracks themselves look okay. There's some detail around them. Texas is like big thing with the flag between it and everything. They look fine. But the cars are just jarring. They kind of take away from the experience. I mean, even on, like I said, the select screen, they don't look good. So they don't really look good on track either. But the graphics are fine, and the game looks okay otherwise. I just want you to remember that I'm on an emulator, and the emulator I used made this game look really nice. The Xbox one, for me, wasn't so much. So the game is average at best on track. So let's take a look at the modes we have to choose from and see if it brings this experience up or not. Beat the Heat seems to be the NASCAR Heat franchise's main mode. And Beat the Heat puts you in different scenarios where you try to earn gold, silver, or bronze trophies to advance to the next scenario. These challenges can range from passing 20 cars in a lap, avoiding a massive crash, performing a green flag pit stop and winning the race, or blocking the field to win. There's multiple different ones. There are 6 different levels with 6 challenges in each level. The last challenge of each level is presented by a real-life NASCAR driver who gives you the scenario. Sometimes the scenario is based on real life, and sometimes it's a fantasy race. If you make it all the way through, you unlock Richard Petty's number 43 STP car. He's the entire last level of Beat the Heat, and he's also there in that level to give you each scenario. It's a fun and innovative mode for its time. The NASCAR Thunder games definitely use this for themselves, for their lightning challenges, but this one was first. Next, there's Race the Pro, where you are racing ghost cars from other NASCAR drivers at their best tracks. Honestly, there's nothing here. You race the ghost car, you beat their time, nothing. No video, no real incentive, nothing, unless you just want 100% the game. Then you have Championship Mode, which is, you guessed it, a single season championship mode where you go through each race. I know NASCAR Thunder 2002 was the first to incorporate a career mode of any kind, but it's super lame. All you can do is just pick a different driver, go through all the races, and that's it. You're done. Nothing too enthralling there. So that's NASCAR Heat 2002 on the PS2. It is definitely a NASCAR game of all time. So on November 15th of 2001, Microsoft launched their Xbox console in North America. What also launched on that same day? NASCAR Heat 2002 on the Xbox. You can see they went with the green cover with rookie sensation Kevin Harvick on the front. It's like they wanted to make this a completely different game, so that it wasn't the same as the PS2 version. And well, that's because they're not the same.
NASCAR Heat, now for Xbox, rated E for everyone.
Right when you boot up the game, you'll notice that instead of the NASCAR Heat theme that was used in the last 2 games, you have some other music. The intro video is almost the same, but they added in a few clips from the 2001 season, and that's it. It ends with a cut of Dale Jr. celebrating the Pepsi 400 win that he had, and it removes the blue background and makes that the background at the start screen. When you boot into the menu, you'll notice that everything is this tannish gold color. It's super weird if you've played the PS2 version. In place of the NASCAR Heat theme, they've put some basic techno-esque music. which does not fit the vibe of this game at all. It reminds me of the music from the PS1 game Revolt. It's super jarring, and it's like this game is trying to be the cool big brother and take itself super serious compared to the PS2 game. Honestly, I don't think they accomplished what they were setting out to do with it. So you have all the same modes as before. Beat the Heat is essentially unchanged, aside from the menus being different. Championship mode is also the same. Nothing unsurprising there. Our first really big change comes in Race the Pro. You have different drivers to choose from the PS2 version, and when you click the track, that driver will pop up on screen with a video, and they're explaining the track, how to drive it, and there's a little video of their actual car going around the track from real life. It's super neat, and it's leaps and bounds more immersive than the PS2 version. It actually makes the mode somewhat playable and worth playing. When you jump into a single race mode, just like the PS2 version, the first thing you'll notice is the car models. Not because of how bad they are, but because of how good they are. The graphics are a huge step up from the PS2 version. The schemes look crisp, and the logos aren't pixelated. The car models are also updated, and they look pretty well identical to their on-track counterparts. They all are still missing the manufacturer logos, but they look more like their actual cars with the front ends and rear ends. The PS2 version also had ones like that, but these probably feel and look better because of the updated graphics. Also at the driver select screen, you'll notice that there's been a few updates to the roster. Kenny Wallace's scheme has been updated to the Duke's mayonnaise car. Hermie Sadler is now in the game, driving the number 13 Hermie Sadler car. Yes, I enjoy drinking a nice cold Hermie Sadler. And the number 77 Jasper car of Robert Presley is in the game. This is kind of note because in 2002 they signed a deal with Papyrus to give them info to make NASCAR 2003 a better simulation, and this car wasn't in the EA games. When you load into the track, your car will be sitting in its pit stall. You can practice, qualify, or mess with the setup without having to reload the game. It's a much more streamlined approach, and it looks really good. Your car will sit on the pit road with everyone else, and when you take off for practice, you can drive down pit road, and you can even hit the other cars if you want. When you hit the track, you'll notice that the handling is much different. This game drives like Dirt to Daytona, and that's a good thing. You can use the analog triggers for gas and brake, which means you can be much more precise with your movements and your acceleration and braking. Your car can get loose, especially in hardcore mode, and no longer drives like a tank. You can spin out from getting hooked or tapped by another car in the left or right rear. Also, the AI cars are no longer driving like tanks either. They drive like in Dirt to Daytona, which is also a good thing. It's super easy to spin them out, hook them, get them out of shape, cause big crashes, or completely screw up the field. It's probably one of the most realistic AI handling cars there is, because it's pretty difficult in the other games to spin any cars out, let alone yourself. I also noticed that the AI cars seem to cause their own crashes sometimes, which I never really noticed in NASCAR 2002 or Dirt to Daytona. It actually makes it pretty fun and realistic. If you cause damage to another car during the race, they're more than likely going to pit and repair that damage the next time by, which I also really enjoy. Now, I did have trouble with my emulator on this game. I couldn't set it up as high as I wanted to on the resolution. But this game is super pretty. I know the other game looked good, but I promise you this one looks better. But this also may be due to the fact that the game is now running 43 cars. That's right, we finally have a 43 car field. While there only may be 20-something real-life drivers, the field is filled out with fantasy drivers. And John Wood for some reason? Anyway, these fantasy cars tend to be much slower than the real drivers, so you normally don't have to worry about them competing for wins or in the top 10. But it does make the 43 car field feel tacked on. I'm glad it's here, but we never have to deal with the less than full field again, so that's a good thing. You'll notice that the UI on track is different too. It also takes a much more serious approach. They were really tinkering with this to try to get it right. I do like it more than the NASCAR Heat 2002 on PS2 version. Just putting this game side by side, you'll notice how much more effort and care was put into this version over the PS2 one. It's like they really wanted to use all the power of the Xbox. The game is much sharper, and it's much bigger too in comparison. I wonder what pushed them to make this game so big and better and new, instead of just lazily porting over the PS2 version. I'm really not sure, but we're better off for it. Honestly, this game feels like a beta of Dirt to Daytona. So much of that game is in here. I can see the framework of it. It's actually pretty astounding. And that game never even came out on the Xbox. The PS2 version honestly feels like a port and upscale of the PS1 version of NASCAR Heat. It's actually pretty crazy. The car models are much different. The tracks do feel the same, but the handling and everything else, aside from the modes, is completely different. So that's NASCAR Heat 2002. For better, for worse, for Xbox or PS2. It's crazy how different these games are, even though they came out months apart. I honestly never even played the Xbox version until this week. But with the differences here, maybe I should try to give something else a chance.